The following broadcast is a Nighthawk Network presentation. What's going on, people? It's your boy E-Buck in the building. Yeah, definitely something to talk about tonight. Okay, as you know, I've been on hiatus, basically trying to get some things in my life in order, deal with my summer and all that. But of course, today something happened within our news cycle that compelled me to have to come to speak to you, the people, in regards to what I feel in the whole process. If you are under a bridge or a rock and have not heard by now, several hours later, yes, President Joe Biden has determined that he is no longer running for re-election. That is the huge news of the day and the moment. Now, for some of you, you are saying, so what? You have quickly switched me off and went back to your life of not caring about none of this whatsoever. For those of you, have a good evening. No longer trying to fight you guys in regards to what you care about, what you don't. With basically age comes some wisdom in regards to some of you. So I had to just let you do what you do. For those of you who actually do give a darn, let us discuss, okay? First and foremost, when I initially heard the news around about 2 o'clock this afternoon, I have to admit I was actually shocked. Considering that the many things that have transpired, discussions, what have you, since the debate a couple months ago, basically Joe was like, I don't care what happens, I'm in here, let's God tell me differently. Well, apparently the good Lord has spoken to Joe Biden because he has determined that it is not in the better interest of all to do so. Now, first and foremost, let's talk about his decision, okay? If Joe indeed made his decision of his own fruition based upon how he is feeling and what his overall health is and how the support is draining and what have you, then I cannot be mad at that decision, okay? It is in the best interest of all parties involved that if that was the reason why ultimately that this is indeed the right decision. Put a pin in that. We're going to revisit that a little bit later. Now, that being said, if you have made this decision, Joe Biden, because certain people in your camp have said that I can't be in your camp unless you do this. In other words, you were pressured into doing so by the people in your political party, then that's a problem. And I imagine if that is the case, it will come to the light, much as several things seem to be coming to the light within the minutes and hours after this decision. If you have made this decision because of your heart or hearts, you know that you cannot, as a person, do what you need to do in order to make the job of president a viable option for you on a daily basis. Then yes, this is the proper decision. However, that being said, it does bring up an interesting argument that people have already jumped on. Again, we'll get to that in a minute. Now, if you have sat down with your family and your family said, pops, grandpop, dad, husband, whatever the case may be, you just ain't got it no more. And you have based your opinion upon them, then again, I feel it is the right decision. Now, all that being said, in you doing this today on July 21st, 2024, just 4 months and some change out from the election, you have started a whole dumpster fire of foolishness to come in the days to come. For those of you who have tuned off, you will miss me saying that if you do not like political talk and politics in general, you're going to have a lot of it to deal with. Even those of you who just like to get your news on social media outlets, you will not be able to escape this, okay? It is the one thing everybody who is anybody will be talking about in the days and weeks to come. It is a big discussion. Understand, this is a moment in time in United States history for those of us who are into those types of things. Only 3 previous presidents who were up for re-election determined or was determined not to do it for a second term, okay? That would be George Washington, Harry S. Truman, and Lyndon B. Johnson. Those 3, okay? Anybody else has at least ran for president a second time, whether they made it or not. For the most part, usually not the case. Usually if you're the incumbent, you tend to win a second term if you choose to go for that. There are, of course, exceptions. The earliest one I can think of at the moment is Gerald Ford, who actually ran against Jimmy Carter, and of course, Jimmy Carter won. But then again, Jimmy Carter won. He ran that second time. He did not win. Okay, he would be one of the exceptions. At any rate, none of these people were 80 plus years of age when this happened, okay? None of the presidents, which I have previously mentioned in this discussion. Joe Biden is. None of the presidents who we are talking about seem to have the issues in terms of memory and speech function and what have you that the current president has. So because of that, when you look at it from that standpoint, it makes sense. As one person put on my social media, why are you surprised? You know he couldn't do 4 more years of this. In my heart of hearts, yeah, I felt that way. And an idea where I felt like he would run, he would win. It'd be a smaller margin, obviously. But then somewhere down the line in that second term, this day would come. I honestly feel that way. There are other people who I'm sure in the days to come will express those same thoughts in some shape or form, okay? So it will not come as a surprise to them. Now, this is just that part of the scenario, okay? Now comes the real problem. Okay, Joe has dropped out. What to do? Now, for several of you, it was a very simple answer. Well, if Joe not running, then that means Kamala must be running, and now it's her turn. The vast majority of people who have been discussed with today have pretty much determined that, and that will be the case. Now, understand there are some political and legal hurdles to jump in order to get to this point in that part of the scenario, if that is to be the case. Understand, as I sit here right now speaking to you, I say that is about 76% probability that Kamala Harris will be your presidential nominee on the Democratic side. I think that's a 76% probability as of today. What's that 24% that I'm looking at? Okay, let's talk about it. Okay, first and foremost, you got to remember, several people had these things called primaries on both the Democrat and Republican side. We already know what's going on with Republicans. They already set, ready to go. They dealt with all that last week in Milwaukee. The Democratic convention has not happened yet in Chicago, okay? And when it was to happen, it was with the understanding, okay, Joe was the person that most of us in our primaries, caucus, whatever we have in whatever state it was, that was the guy we chose, okay? Granted, he had very, very little opposition in most of these places. Some places, none whatsoever. But it was Jeff, with the understanding that, yeah, Kamala was on the ticket, but we voted for Jeff, okay? Now, some people may have thought about it different. I did to some degree, I ain't gonna lie. I considered, okay, I'm voting for Joe, but I'm also voting for Kamala because what if Joe don't make it, okay? understand the life expectancy of us here in America as males are about 77 years of age. Joe already passed that. All right. Think about what type of physical and mental condition he's in as he sits at home at COVID, dealing with all this on top of running the country still. Consider that as we have this discussion. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, if something happened to Joe in office tomorrow, Kamala would be president. There will be some issues that have to be dealt with. There'll be some people that be like, okay, well, blah, 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 blah. But we know, according to what the Constitution says, in the event that happens, vice president, automatically president, okay? So do keep these things in mind as we make these votes for president and vice president, okay? So for those of you who are fans of the other side, and of course we got to talk about that in a minute, remember who his vice presidential choice is, and are you good with him being in charge if DT don't make it on that side? We'll get to that. Okay, now back to the assumption that Kamala Harris, and for those of you who do not know how to say her name correctly, it's not Kamala, it's not Camila, it's Kamala Harris. Get used to saying it properly because that person may very well be the next president of the United States, perhaps. You might want to learn how to say their name correctly, just like you had to learn how to say Barack. Okay? Anyway, the thing is this. Those people who voted in the primaries, they did not vote Kamala to be president. They voted her to be vice president. Now, if you make her the presidential nominee, is it fair to those people to say, okay, well, Joe decided now he don't want to run, so this is your candidate. You good with that? If not, too bad. That's how we run it. Is that cool? It kind of is, and it kind of ain't. Okay, on the one hand, like I said, that ain't who I endorse. I endorse the ticket. I endorse Joe and Kamala, but not necessarily Kamala. Okay? Now, I will say this much. If you have a problem with your vice presidential candidate on either ticket, it's something you got to consider when voting for said president, particularly when both people in the discussion before yesterday was over the age of 75, okay? There is that possibility that natural causes, what have you, make it to where they don't quite get there, okay? You got to think about that, all right? The other thing you got to consider is that that person named Kamala Harris now not only has to switch up her whole agenda to now be on top of the ticket, but also consider who her vice president is going to be. And I'm not even about to get into who that might be right now. They throwing names left and right, here and there. Anybody from this senator here to, of course, our governor here in Michigan. All those names going to be out there. They're going to continue to be out there, all right? Nor am I going to sit here and talk about who might run instead of Kamala, okay? Because right now there's no major mentions at the moment. But I promise you, good people, before the end of this day, hell, before this time tomorrow, there'll be at least one or two people who will say, no, don't just throw Kamala in there. What about me, boss? I want some of that. Let me get some of that smoke. Those names will come up, and they will be out there, and you will determine if it is that. Now, is Kamala my first choice to replace Joe on the ticket? I'm going to be 100 with you. No. But the people that I would want instead either have chosen not to run or are unable to, or will have some of the similar issues that Joe may have, perhaps. Or, of course, is Barack Obama, who can't run because can't do a third term, but that's a whole nother argument, okay? Just like they changed it to 2-term limit, they could change it out of 2-term limit. And don't think that that will not be a discussion if the other person ends up being president. Don't think that ain't gonna come up. Because it will. Promise you it will. Anyway, good people, here's the thing. We're going to assume that Kamala is going to be the nominee. All right? Now, here's the thing. One, Kamala, you got to prove to the people that you are the one to do this job. I don't think that you should run on I'm going to continue the work of Joe. Because understand, the vast majority of America, whether you be Democrat or Republican, feel that Joe is not doing the best job, okay? I'm going to be honest. I don't think he did the best job. Was he one of the worst presidents ever? According to DT is. To me, DT definitely was the worst president than he. But I wasn't the biggest Joe Biden supporter. I ain't going to lie. There's things about Joe I very much care about, and like how he deals with it. But in terms of some of the things that he said he was going to do and get done, they ain't getting done. Okay? I can go back to my little video, and at some point down the line, I will to show, okay, this is what I expected, and this is what happened. Will Kamala be able to do that as well or better? That is something she must project to us, okay? Are you going to be a better president than the previous president? That is something you also must project to the people and prove to them, or at least let them feel like that is the case. Of course, you will have the problem that anybody named Kamala Harris that looks like you will have. Unfortunately, problem one, the fact that you are a woman, there are some people in this country who unfortunately, no matter what, is not going to vote for a female to be president. It is the sad truth of the matter. It is racist, sexist, and stupid. The vast majority of American households are ran by women and done so effectively. The majority of people who actually vote in elections are women and do so effectively. Joe Biden is the current president because of women, because of minorities, because of minority women, okay? All those should play a factor, but again, there are some of you, as soon as you figure out, okay, I'll vote for Joe, even though Joe had some issues, but Kamala gonna be the one now? No way in hell, nope. And more than likely, those people are not going to switch and be like, well, gotta vote for DT. More than likely, those people are gonna be like, well, I'm out. I ain't voting for nobody. And that will be the worst scenario of all for the Harris / whoever ticket, okay? If they determine that, that's going to be a problem, okay? Understand. Let's look at the winner in all this at the moment. Clearly, the winner in all this is DT, the previous president, the orange clown himself. I promise you, at some point today, he is pumping fists. He is happy than a full of, okay? He is very pleased with this because he feels like, one, I pushed him to it. I told you, Joe, you couldn't do it. Two, he feels like, oh, Kamala gonna run instead. Oh, yeah, I got this. I got this. She ain't gonna win. This Hillary all over again. I'm about to get on. I'm about to be president again. It's on and popping. Let me point out, people, this is now the third time DT is running for president, okay? Truth be told, he not only did not really win in 2020, we know he didn't win, okay? 2016, he didn't really win either. Yeah, the Electoral College, okay. We already know about all that, all right? But the popular vote, as in the actual amount of people that voted for him, as opposed to against him, more people voted against him than they did for him, okay? That's just the truth. Look it up for yourself. All right? Now, that being said, if all that comes into play right now, You got to be feeling good if you are a supporter of DT. Because understand, no matter what happens on the other side of the fence, you could care less. You vote for that brother. You don't care who run against him, okay? It matters not to you whatsoever. It could be the craziest scenario of all. Let's just say the unthinkable. Let me go with the most outlandish scenario of all time. Let's say Mike Pence wakes up tomorrow morning like, you know what? I'm a Democrat today, and I'm going to run for president. And he messed around and get the nomination. Wouldn't that be interesting? DT versus his former vice president. Now, that would be must-see TV, okay? Granted, never would happen in a million years. But then again, did you see this day coming? Some of you thought this might never happen. Weeks ago, if you asked me, okay, is Biden going to jump out the race? I would have been like 96%. Nah, I can't see it. So for it to happen today, on this day, still slightly stunned. Okay? I admit it. That being said, I also would be stunned if Kamala Harris is not the candidate that takes his place. In terms of the vice president, just please pick someone who is A, competent, B, have some type of political experience, 3, can relate to people from multiple ways of life, and 4, as much as I hate to admit this, but more than likely probably should be a male. Am I being sexist for that? No, I'm not. Okay? Understand, somewhere down the line, I do see the present governor of Michigan running for president someday. I don't think she should do it now. I think she should wait. But in that time, if she is running, more than likely, that is who I would go with when that happens, if it happens. But in terms of having 2 women run on the ticket together, I do not feel America is ready for that. I don't feel America would take that combination seriously, unfortunately. Even if it was somebody as influential as Oprah or Michelle Obama, who I must admit would be my first choice to run, period. But I know she will not do it. We all know she won't do it. She wasn't happy her husband did, okay? That being said, if she decided tomorrow to do it, she would win. Ain't no doubt in my mind she would win. None whatsoever. But going back to the likely scenario, okay? We got Kamala, we got DT. Understand these next 2 weeks going to be very, very interesting. As I'm sitting here now watching TV, ever since it was announced pretty much for hours on end, most of the major networks have jumped on this and will be on this for days, okay? It's going to get talked about on TMZ and everywhere else. It's going to get talked about on TikTok, Facebook, and Gram and X. You ain't going to escape this, all right? Just like those of you who didn't like to talk about the pandemic, but everywhere you look, everybody talking about the pandemic, it's going to be talked about, all right? Because it's important. Who is running things here in the free capital of the world is important. It's not just important to us here in America. It's important to around the world, okay? Understand there are some people, they do not like this, all right? They didn't want DT. They didn't want Joe Biden. They don't want Kamala. They don't want none of these choices, all right? There are some people who may very well be very happy with Kamala, okay? Some people are going to be like, oh, no, that's even worse. And some people are going to be like, oh, Lord, DT about to win. We in trouble. Understand, President Zelensky, he might have some trepidation right now. Because if DT wins the White House, Ukraine is in trouble, and we all know it. Okay? I'm sure Putin wouldn't mind that. I'm sure the president of North Korea wouldn't mind it. Kim Jong-un. Okay? But in terms of us the people who actually have to live in this country, are we ready for a female president? The answer is yes. Because we almost had one to begin with. Are we ready for a black female president or a biracial female black? Because again, there will be some people that will want to argue that point, that Kamala is not all the way black or descendant of slaves or whatever foolishness y'all like to throw in that mix. Y'all know who y'all are that like to discuss it on them terms. Whatever. Feel how you feel. Do you discuss on your platforms? Do you? This me doing me, okay? I'm sitting here telling you, no, I'm not just going to vote for Kamala Harris because she is black or partially black. No more than I just voted for Barack Obama just because he was black. I felt he was the best person for the job, and he happened to be black, okay? I'm not going to sit here and say it wasn't a factor. It was a small factor, but it wasn't a major factor, nor will it be here, okay? Am I more likely to vote for Kamala anyway? Why, you ask? You know, in the end, we only got two real choices when it all boils down to it. And if in the end, the two choices now are Kamala Harris and DT, I can't do DT, y'all. I can't do DT. No way, no shape, no form, especially under these circumstances. Because if he wins now under these circumstances, oh boy, we talking about a person who at 77 years of age himself has some issues cognitively, okay? He might be a little better at it than Joe, mind you. But yeah, you done heard some of the speeches you've been listening. He done had his scoffs and method ups and whatnot. He done said some things that was like, yeah, not to mention some of the things that he's actually said in the 4 years before and since. Okay? Not to mention he is a convicted felon and owes hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of dollars, I should say, so on and so forth. Discussions for another day. Anyway, what we have here now is that to consider. Also understand that part of the scenario in this is the fact that all the people up under the ticket, okay, in the Democrat, in other words, the senators and the representatives, they all play a key role in this and also benefit or do not benefit from this, okay? There will be pretty much every major talking person in Congress. In other words, people that you're used to seeing on TV that have something to say about what's going on, you're going to see their face in the next 3-4 days. Y'all know the characters, you know. You're going to definitely hear from people like Schumer and Pelosi and, of course, the person currently in charge of the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, and people like that. You've already heard from, if you've been watching the news today, you've already heard from the Speaker of the House who feels like, okay, yeah, something ain't right here. And we'll talk about what he said in a minute. But you're going to hear from all those folks. You're going to hear from the people that you can't stand here from. Like some of my personal not favorites, like Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Graham. And, of course, that clown, Marjorie Taylor Greene, that fool. You're going to hear from all those folks in the next several days what they have to say, okay? So if you're not looking forward to that, if you already don't like to watch the news, it's probably not going to be a good week for you, okay? You don't like to hear about politics, also probably not going to be a good week for you people. You ain't going to be happy, all right? Now, let's go and talk about another part of this, okay? Let's just assume for a minute that we didn't got to this. Understand that the president is currently battling COVID and whatnot, and has said that at some point he will come on TV this week to explain how he came to this decision. The point that somebody obviously was going to bring up, and it seems like the Speaker of the House is one of the first people to do it, is, okay, if you have determined you are not fit to be president for 4 more years, what is to say that you are fit to be president right now. Perhaps you should step down right now. It's a discussion, folks. I hate to admit it, but it is a discussion. You've heard how Joe Biden has sounded lately. You've seen how he's moving around. You saw that terrible performance on the debate. Yeah, I understand there's only like 4 more months left, or about 6 more months of his presidency. But is it worth letting him finishing out his term? Or do we have to have that discussion sometime this week as well? Are you ready for him to say, hey, I just can't do this no more, period? Kamala, go on ahead and finish it up for me, boo. Are you ready for that? Understand, there's an argument to be made that, okay, if in the end this was the master plan to begin with, and you know there are going to be people that have that discussion, that Joe knew all along he wasn't going to be able to finish this and had full intention of having Kamala Harris become president anyway, you, my friends, have to understand that if that was to be the case, then friends and neighbors, we may have some conspiracy going on. Okay? Understand, one of my favorite shows in recent times was the show Scandal. And if you are a fan of the TV show Scandal, written by Shonda Rhimes, starring, of course, the great Kerry Washington, who actually never won an Emmy for her role as the fixer Olivia Pope, which is a tragedy in and of itself. You are familiar with some of the things that went on that show. And several of us thought, okay, why are these things feeling so accurate to me? Like these things could actually happen in real life. Okay? Think about some of what went on in these last several months with the whole DT assassination attempt and the whole thing with the debate and now what's happening today and so on and so forth. Think about that. And for those of you who watch the show, think about some of the stuff that went on Scandal. Okay? Are there some similarities that's starting to pop out to you in that? Do you get some of them same feels about some of what's going on? For those of you who are conspiracy theorists, don't just have that feel to it that some ain't quite right. It do kind of feel that way on both sides, okay? These things will come up in discussion. I'm not the only person that's going to say stuff like this. Understand, we got tomorrow, people sitting at home. I probably can't wait to go on the air and discuss. People like the people at The View. People like, of course, The Breakfast Club. The show some of y'all love to hate. Steve Harvey Show, all those morning talk shows and whatnot. The late night shows, all the people that like to discuss these types of things. It's going to be a lot to be said by them, okay? It's going to be a lot of differences of opinions and whatnot. I'm here for it because as a person who likes media, does media, that's kind of what I like to listen to and discuss. But in the same token, I know it's going to get kind of crazy. These next few days, these next few weeks, if it already wasn't chaotic enough, if 2024 was already not a year of confusion and misunderstanding, it's about to be a lot more confusion and misunderstanding in the weeks to come. Those of you who stay prayed up, continue to stay prayed up because it's going to get kind of interesting. And maybe not in a good way. All I know is now, if Joe, this is your decision and purely your decision made for the proper reasons, I wish you luck. And hopefully you can finish out strong in these last several months. Everybody else involved or about to be involved or want to be involved, man, oh man. I need y'all to really, really do some things, okay? Understand, people, I've said it before, I will say it again. Politics is a dirty, dirty game. And let me tell you, my friends, I think it's about to get dirty, not in a good way. But let me leave you with this thought before I head back on out to my hiatus, all right? It is very simple. If indeed the president has stepped aside for the best interest of our country, because he feels not only that he cannot win, but it's in the best interest of all to have a more fit leader to move forward. Is DT that leader? Remember, he himself has said on numerous occasions the reason why he's running now is because he did not want the country to be ran and led again by what he considers to be the worst president of all time. That person is no longer running for office. Does that now mean he should not run as well? Think about it. We already know the answer to that is he's going to run anyway, but think about it. Is he any more fit to run for office than the current president is now? And wouldn't that be something if sometime this week that announcement gets made? Lord, if that happens, Lord help us all. Oh, hell might break loose. Anyway, that's what I got on it. For those of you who are tuned in, thank you. Those of you who want to comment later on after the fact, feel free to do so. In the comments, I'll get back to you. Until then, I will check back in, hopefully in August, unless, of course, something else major happens between now and then, in which case I may be compelled to come on back again and give y'all my opinion. But the news of the day, Joe Biden has dropped out the race. Kamala Harris probably will take his place. Are we ready for a female president? Are we ready for a black female president? Is this a definite win for DT now? All questions that will be answered in the weeks and days to come. Tune in, y'all. Until then, be blessed. God bless us all. God help us all. Love y'all. I'm out. This has been the I Am Nighthawk podcast. A Nighthawk Network presentation. Nighthawk Network, our voices for our people.